summer, so it won't be 7 days. It'll be more like 4 or 5 before you got good viable kombucha ready to start some more cultures with. But as far as feeding the kombucha, it's that simple. You just dump it out, put some tea back in, put it on the shelf, it's fed. Alright, we got the spices cooked into the triple berry juice. I'm going to strain the spices out before I add the sweetener, just using a standard coffee filter. And that's basically that process. Alright, now we got these spices out. Now what's interesting about kombucha is you can actually use just the spices. You know, some people will do just ginger and ginger, clove, cinnamon, stuff like that, licorice root. Sarsaparilla is actually just a root that they boil down and fermented pellets. Stop. So because this is going to ferment, we're going to use just some regular sugar because the fermentation process generally consumes most of that. I'm going to put probably about a tablespoon of molasses in there. Not only will the kombucha consume the molasses and make the sugars more digestible, but the minerals in the molasses will help the ferment and keep the ferment going good. Now, because we like to have a little bit of fun from time to time, we're putting some maple in there. A couple tablespoons of that, who really cares? This is probably what I would call slightly over sweet, but what would probably end up resulting in slightly over alcohol. So, that's the whole daggum jar of honey. So we'll probably do about the same. Probably about 2-3 tablespoons of honey. Sorry, I'm chewing on oatmeal. See, I still got some of my yogurt from this morning that I didn't finish. My kefir with oatmeal and blueberries that I put on last night. And so I usually snack on it instead of grabbing junk food of an evening. So that's it. We boiled fruit, strained the fruit out, added some spices, sugar, strained the spices out, added some sugars, and that's ready to go. Mix this up. And so one of the most common methods is these pressure cap lids. You generally want to do about 50% kombucha, if not slightly more, which is why it's good to make your juice wash pretty strong. I lost my funnel. Alright, so I got my funnel, jar. Funny thing about the funnels is they tend to seal, so you gotta kind of pick them up a little bit. But if you would like to use store-bought juice, store-bought juice works okay, but corn syrup doesn't ferment the best. Not in my opinion, at least. And you can also get like cranberry juice from the store, add some sugar to sweeten it up a little bit more because the sugars are going to get fermented out. And basically just add the kombucha to that so you can save the whole process of making the juice with fruit in it. But I can tell you right now, this process is what led into me learning how to distill fruits down into like really good desserts and candies and fillers for pies and fillers for breads and all sorts of stuff that's most definitely worth having. I don't know, put a gunk on the lid there. So that's basically it. I'm going to take the keg. We have a 5-liter keg. And basically do the same. The 5 liters keg, I usually take, 8? I take 10 cups of kombucha starter And then I fill the rest of the keg with juice. Close the keg up, store it on the shelf, open the one from last week and throw the tap on it. Alright, we got 10 cups of kombucha in there, and I'm adding the rest up. I'm just trying to show this just so you can see how I'm able to kind of look down into the keg from the angle I'm holding the pan. You get it from the sound, but you can kind of see the bubbles start to approach. One thing I will say that is always a mistake is trying to fill it. The bubbles are a great little warning. Nature's little warning symbol. So when them bubbles start coming out the top, you want to stop. Because if you fill these all the way to the top or even to the bottom of this ring, when they pressurize and you open them, you don't have time to close it back before it gushes out. And if you leave these too long, open them, I've had ones that emptied themselves, just completely emptied out, and they can explode, so you got to be careful. But the exploding thing is kind of unlikely. Within the first 5 to 7 days, they're going to do their fermentation. If you burp them pretty much one time, go and burp them 4 or 5 days later, they're not going to have the same kind of pressure. They only have like a critical mass while they're fermenting, so it's good to know that. But they do still continue to ferment long after you leave them set up. So basically all of this is done. All I have to do is put this on the shelf. In 7 days, this will be a fairly weak beer, a fairly weak brew, but in about 14 days, it'll tear you up if you drank that whole thing. Alright, while that thing's venting, I'm going to reassemble the keg. You basically have a few pieces. You slide this in. There's a slit on the back, and if you put it basically like a crosswise with it, it'll fit in. That way this can fit into that crack from the top. Screws on there. You want to make sure this is screwed on first with this ring trapped on. There's little grooves to get this in. Screw this on. Oops. This hose goes on here, and then the pressure regulator goes on here. When putting the pressure regulator on, there's a rubber gasket that gets a little funky and doesn't really tighten up till it gets done there. And then this is that's the pressure gauge. This is the pressure regulator. So if it gets over 44 psi, it will blow. 10 psi is 7 to 10 is a good flow rate for the keg to flow at. Alright, hopefully this isn't too embarrassing, but I like to pull that SCOBY out. Try and take the hose down the side, because if there's any more SCOBY forming over the top, I'm going to try and pull that off. Set this on, make sure the tap is closed, make sure everything, see, wasn't tightened up. So we'll put this back on straight. I like to do this because I've been doing this for a couple of years, and still you see how messy it can get. So I have it in a pan to basically catch any of the runoff from the keg that has holes here. So I'm just going to rinse this off, and you can see from the pressure gauge we already have some movement on it. We're building that pressure up. Alright, so this happens to be the same kind of peach that I made earlier, and you can see how much pressure is built up and how it comes out. So if you get too much pressure, this thing will just not even flow out, and you'll have to pull this little release over there to let some pressure out. Alright y'all, it's 3:35 a.m. and I'm winding down. So we have this loaf that we started earlier that we didn't show the recipe for, because basically fermenting is a multi-day thing. It's something you always have going on, so it's actually really kind of hard to show without a heck of a lot of pre-planning. But basically, since we steamed that loaf, it just pops right out. So we'll give you a view of that before we go. But you see, we got a good solid loaf of bread, a little cheese layer in there. Beautiful. These are them biscuits we cooked up earlier. Nice and flaky, layered the way they're supposed to be. Nice and fluffy, real simple. Just a few ingredients. Throw them bagged up. We got our pancakes here. Strawberry or blueberry pancakes. I'm actually going to munch on one of them. I toasted back up. We got our raspberry syrup that probably not be left by the time the raspberry bread's made. And in closing, you know, we made noodles, we made all sorts of stuff. And in noodles, mine was super wet. And in the soup, you don't really notice it too much. Sometimes if they're too fluid, they'll just completely dissipate. If I'm making spaghetti, I add some more flour into it, roll it out. You can add an egg into it, dry them out, however you want. But really, basically, I tried to do so much to show how simple each individual thing is. And I know this is pushing 2 hours long, but it was about 6 hours worth of stuff and covers really a lot. So if there's anything anybody gets out of this, has some feedback to help my wife understand what some of these processes are and what they're doing, then just please allow for some feedback and let me know how to do better in the future.